Just recently, Todd Chrisley announced his plans or his intent to sue without a crystal ball. Now, in one of these podcasts in which he was talking and discussing his plans for suing without a crystal ball, he made reference to Katie and her husband associating with white supremacists. Now, for those who are unaware of what it is Todd Chrisley was talking about, please allow me to refresh your memory. Allow me to inform you of the series of events that took place over the past year and a half that led a lot of people to wonder if there are some ties there. Now, I'm not saying that they're racist. I'm just saying I don't know if they are. Okay, now I'm going to present all of these to you in chronological order, in the order in which they happened. On August 8, 2019, Katie Joy had this to say about the Kardashians.
And these girls' butts so gross. And then, and I'm just going to say it, and I know I'm a white girl, but I have plenty of girls. I have plenty of girlfriends that are African American. I really think that these women are trashy as hell because they want the aesthetic of a black woman. They want to date the black men. It's just, all they do is cultural appropriation. It's gross. So they want the body, they want the men, but then they want the benefits of being white. I don't like it.
Okay, next we have a series of videos and posts by Katie regarding George Floyd's murder. These all take place from about May 25th to the first couple days in June of 2020. The first screenshot shows someone asking Katie, "Hey, have you thought of maybe covering the story about George Floyd and the spread of riots? Just wondering. Hope you and your family are well." To which Katie replies, "Hey there, I live in Minnesota. As much as I'm outraged, I honestly don't think I will. I hate it happened so much. You have no idea. The cops here are effing terrible to black men. But my energy is really best served in the places I'm most passionate, which right now is sticking up for children with disabilities." The next screenshot shows Katie saying, "My heart is broken in a million pieces. George Floyd was senselessly murdered by my hometown Minneapolis police officers over Memorial Day weekend. I sat in horror watching the video footage of him begging officers to help him because he couldn't breathe. Officers sat there arrogantly and did not stop the officer from pinning him down by his neck. This incident took me back to only a few years ago when Philando Castile was senselessly murdered by police in St. Anthony, where I grew up, for a traffic violation. Something is so seriously wrong with our police officers here. Philando Castile's murder, Geronimo Yanez walked free. It's safe to say the lack of justice for Philando's death left a deep mark on my city's heart and soul. When we fail to protect our citizens, then allow rogue cops to walk free, people don't forget. This reaction by Minneapolis should not shock anyone. Philando did not get justice. Minneapolis will be damned that George Floyd doesn't receive justice, despite that anger, which I fully understand." The next screenshot says, "My husband's mother was one half Native American. Not sure how it's his great ancestors. Also, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm grieving with you. I am scared for you, but hurting more innocent people is not the answer." The following screenshot says, from Todd, "Oh, please, don't get confused about what Katie is saying. We hurt for what is being done to young black men by white cops. We completely understand where this anger and outrage is coming from. I don't condone rioting either, but I understand and empathize with the frustrations. What you failed to see in this post is that we both have family who are living right in the heart of all of this. We have a right to be concerned about buildings and hospitals being burned down and also feel compassion toward victims like George Floyd and others. And for your information, you don't need to educate my wife on the fact this country was stolen. She's with someone who's Native American blood." The following screenshot is from Todd again. This time he says, "No, I won't tell Katie. You can tell her yourself. I'm sorry you feel this way. I understand you're hurt. Therefore, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to apologize or feel guilty about my own heritage. But as I stated before, I empathize with what you have to go through every single day in this country. People get mad at me all the time for spelling it like Amerikka, but I don't give a shit. Anyway, please understand that we are not your enemy. We are an ally. Have a nice day." And again, next, we have Todd saying, "Please tell me where I said that I support rioting." Followed by, "Don't question my motives. You don't know me. You and everybody else can believe whatever it is that you want to believe about what I said." Okay, next we have Chrissy Teigen saying, "In celebration of whatever the fuck MAGA night is, I am committed to donating $100,000 to the bailouts of protesters across the country. Katie says, you are awful. Do not encourage the rioting and looting. Someone else says, she's not inviting anything. She's supporting the hundreds of people who've been arrested the last few days. She chose to say something publicly because apparently tonight is MAGA night, whatever that is. Have you missed the news? Minneapolis and St. Paul have been set on fire for 4 nights. That's not funny. And bailing people out isn't bailing out peaceful protesters. And lastly, we have Katie saying, Derek Chauvin, you should be charged for the devastation to my city. This is your fault. Someone else says, I thought he was. He was charged with third-degree murder earlier today, to which Katie says, my city is on fire! Okay, so the following are some video clips I pulled from a video that I found in the subreddit, WOACB. I just want to thank the moderators of this subreddit real quick for letting me use this in the video. Thank you.
I'm disgusted at the 3 other officers that stood there. I'm heartbroken for their families. I'm heartbroken for their children. I am heartbroken for their communities. I am heartbroken for every single person. I'll never forget his face in that shirt. I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget it. And now this is my city. Everyone is so upset. And then we have people that have come from out of town by the hundreds, driven into our city. And this is what the city looks like. It's just so sad. And it's just scary. Like, they don't really know what's going on right now. They don't really know, like, who's done what.
Next, we have Katie talking about how Keith Ellison was appointed yesterday and how he's the first Muslim to be elected into office and to be sworn in on the Torah.
They appointed Keith Ellison yesterday, which is good. Keith Ellison is, interestingly, he was one of the very first Muslim in the House of Representatives, and he was one of the very first to be elected, and then also like take his oath on the Torah. He's also a person of color.
So on June 20th, 2020, Katie's husband Todd, his band, released their new album. His band, Canning Dicks. Okay, fine, Canistairs. They released their new album. And upon doing so, they were then confronted with some questions about why they were on a new label. And after releasing their new album, they then released a video. And in their official premiere video there, Todd and his band were using these symbols called runes, R-U-N-E-S. And apparently these same design of ruins had been used by some white supremacists or racist groups, all in all. And as a result, there are a lot of people who, upon seeing these images, are then upset and affected by this. But rather than try and listen to this and accept the fact that these images that you are now helping to put out into the world even further are causing harm, rather than try and take some of that in and try and understand and try to make a better decision, they decide to double down. Let's first check out the video and take a look at these ruins.
Mama, what's bestowed on me? Father.
The first screenshot here explains how the National Socialist Movement, the NSM, have adopted this same design as a legacy logo, and the same design is also known as a rune. The next screenshot here explains how the Othala rune, pictured here, which is also part of the runic alphabet system, has also been used throughout most of Europe in the 20th century as a symbol for Nazism. And this following screenshot is a picture of a tweet by Without a Crystal Ball. And in this tweet, she says, the KKK took the Christian cross as their symbol and used to for hate. Does this mean we accuse people who wear crosses of being white supremacists? No! Runes are thousands of years old and have innocent meanings. The only rune that should never be shared is the swastika. And this last screenshot shows yet another tweet from Without a Crystal Ball. She responds to someone who says neo-Nazis tried to destroy everything. They already ruined the original meaning of the swastika. Can they please stay away from Norse history? To which Without a Crystal Ball replies, I know it's awful. They steal historical runes with beautiful meanings and turn them into hate.
husband has a brand new label, which is amazing. They like ditched their old label because they got involved and started signing all of these bands that were like terribly.
Next, we have some Instagram posts. First, we have by Without a Crystal Ball. Recently, people have been accusing my husband of being a white supremacist because he shared pre-Christian alphabet runes used by the Norse/Viking people thousands of years ago. My husband is deeply interested in his ancestral background as a man with Scandinavian and Native American lineage. Yes, that's right. My husband is also part Ojibwe, a native tribe of the North Americans slaughtered by explorers and a community that is still struggling with oppression today. This is his statement months ago denouncing hate. Not all heathens are white supremacists. That's akin to saying all white people are racist. We know it's not true. Thank you. Next, we have by Canning Dix. Thank you for sharing this. We as a band recently raised over $400 and donated it to the American Indian Cultural Center in Minneapolis, which burned down during the recent riots. I challenge anyone to say with a serious face that a white supremacist would raise money for Native Americans, a group of people who have been under the thumb of the white man since this country was founded. It's truly a shame that this stuff even needs to be said, but such is life in the age of cancel culture and people's lack of desire for any sort of nuanced conversation. Without a Crystal Ball says, we know we are not racist. It's sad that hate groups will steal ancient symbols to promote hate. Canning Dix says, and we will fight to keep our symbols and not allow hate groups to misappropriate them. Next, we have Canning Dix saying, it all stems from my use of the Elgar Futhark runes. Uneducated people see that and they jump to conclusions because some knuckle-dragging Odinists here in America have misappropriated the Othala runes to push their hatred. Canning Dix then says, my grandfather on my mom's side was 100% Ojibwa. Next, Canning Dix says, after that long-ass diatribe, you still don't understand the point being behind all of this. You seem to want to insert your opinions on things without actually knowing exactly what you were talking about. Now, that last statement may have sounded harsh, but I implore you, if you want to try to talk intelligently on this subject, please educate yourself first. There is absolutely nothing racist about the Elder Futhark runes. Zero. It's an ancient letter system used by pre-Christian Germanic Scandinavian peoples before the Christians came to that part of the world and converted everyone. As a Norse heathen, I use the runes all the time. They mean a great deal to me. The notion that my use of the Othala rune in the video to tell a story has offended someone is simply not a possibility, because it's not a racist symbol or a symbol of hate. Us inclusive heathens fight this shit every day. Do not fault us for the fact that certain far-right types have misappropriated some of the runes in order to push their hate. Canning Dix then says, look, I'm tired of playing this game of whack-a-mole. I guess you are free to believe whatever the hell you want to believe. Mind you, it's based on one post. You said it yourself that you didn't even know about me until she just posted this. It's really a shame that you are ready to make such snap judgments against people having not knowing the full extent of someone's heart or life experiences. Kind of seems like the same deplorable behavior that the white supremacists use. Yes? And finally, this last screenshot shows Canning Dix as saying, here's the thing that you are failing to understand though. This whole conversation stems from some people asserting that I'm a Nazi because I use some imagery of an Elder Futhark rune in my video. Those runes do not have any racist connotation whatsoever. The only reason people jump to this conclusion is there are some white power groups out there who have misappropriated these runes to push their hateful agenda. So that brings us to this. Should I, as a Norse heathen who happens to be inclusive, should I be forced to not do rune work because some idiots are using them for inexcusable reasons? Also, should I bow to the idea that something that is very important part of my culture should just be erased because somebody else wants to attach a baseless accusation of hatred to it? Everyone should be able to celebrate their own cultures and histories. Next, we have Katie's little slip of the tongue here from July 2020 when she said that Kanye was not at his ranch so much as he was at his plantation.
So Kanye is maybe more down, maybe more hanging out, maybe more subdued today. I don't really know. Justin Bieber was at his was at the plantation, was at the compound, or the he has a ranch. At the ranch, Justin Bieber was at the ranch, and he had been like traveling cross country with Haley. Sella, I said plantation thinking ranch. Sorry about that. Okay. Thinking about all the Harriet Tubman stuff that Mr. Kanye said this week.
Okay, so the following screenshots and video clips are from January 2021, when Katie and her husband were once again kind of forced to answer questions about why they were once signed with the racist label to begin with and why they are now with a new label.
Is accusing my husband of signing a record deal with a company or with a record label that has white supremacy ties. My husband did not sign with a record label that had white supremacists on it. They were not active with that label when this specific band was signed. And as soon as my husband's band found out that they signed a band that had ties to white nationalism, they terminated their contract. They took a financial loss. They owed the label 2 more albums, but instead pulled everything and wanted nothing to do with this label, publicly denounced the label, and found a label that has 0 ties at all to white supremacy. The facts are, when he was signed with that label, like more than a decade ago, they didn't have anyone of the sort on their label at all.
Okay, before we go any further, I just want to take a moment and highlight some of the things that she said here. She says that when her husband signed with this label like a decade ago, that this label didn't have any racist bands signed with them. And that it wasn't until this label signed some racist bands that her husband then decided he had to leave the label. And in doing so, he just up and left everything. He left owing them money and 2 more albums. But he had to just leave to go find a less racist label. Let's just keep that in mind as we continue.
I don't care about 90% of the rumors that are started about me, but that's a rumor that can literally get you killed. Like, in this climate, if you accuse someone of being a racist or being a white supremacist, you can have people end up at your house with guns.
Now, I'm a little confused what she means there. Like, does she mean that the people who are making these accusations could possibly wind up with people at their house with guns threatening them? Or is she saying that the people who are accused of being racist will end up with people at their house with guns? Because who would want to shoot possible alleged racists other than people affected by racism? So is she suggesting that people of color, upon hearing that she might be racist, could possibly end up at her door with guns threatening her life?
My husband has responded publicly multiple times about all of this. But this is what he posted on my Instagram earlier, which said that he is not a white supremacist. He is part of the Troth, which he is an inclusive heathen community, and he has signed Proclamation 127, which takes a direct stance against bigotry of any. I don't know who you are in real life, but I'm sorry if I've ever said anything involving your husband's belief. Did you participate in that dialogue? Because I'm telling you right now, it's not true. It's never been true. It'll never be true. We would never support that kind of thinking. We have been outspoken in our support for Black Lives Matter.
Again, I just want to take a moment and kind of highlight what she says there. She says, it'll never be true because we could never support that kind of thinking. We could never support that kind of thinking.
We have donated our time, our money, resources to help communities that were ravaged by the riots related to George Floyd and his murder. That's who we are. When Minneapolis was burning to the ground, my husband went to multiple Dollar Trees, filled up our car, and we dropped off all kinds of toiletries and essential needs like Q-tips and tampons and toothbrushes and toothpaste, things that people couldn't get because of those riots.
Okay, next we're going to meet Darcy, the white woman that Katie felt was appropriate to come on panel and vouch for her not being racist.
Hi, this is my friend Darcy. She knows me in real life.
There is not 1 ounce of racism in your body. There is not 1 ounce of racism in Todd's body. You know, make false accusations, and then all of a sudden people are at your door and you have a little child, and you are taking care of that child, and you're protecting your home and your family. And yes, your gay pride, you know, flag got stolen. I remember that.
No, apparently you don't remember that because it wasn't stolen. That was never Katie's claim, but something tells me you might not need to remember that going forward.
It got like, it was like they were bending it down, and like I told you all of the issues we were having with that flag.
Yes.
You know the neighborhood that we live in. It's very conservative.
It is.
And there's a lot of people that are homophobic.
Yes. And you are not, because one of your besties is, you know, gay. Remember when you were telling me about that when you guys went and had or you made Noki together?
We went to the Science Museum. Cleopatra, it was like the flag was not stolen. Darcy did not, that it was not stolen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got it mixed up. I'm getting a lot of things mixed up. Don't worry
No,
about it.
my story has not changed, Cleopatra. My story has never changed. Darcy misspoke. Go check my thread, Cleopatra, and don't be a troll.
Well, Katie, I guess it wasn't a good thing for me to come on because you got
No, fine.
All I gotta say is social media is just a bunch of assholes at the end of the day.
Said that I was one of the few YouTubers that took a stance for Black Lives Matter. That's because that's who I am. It's not performative for us at all. It's like our lives.
Sure is.
And I don't have friends that are racist. I don't associate with racists. That's just not me. Yeah. I will stand up for LGBTQ plus always. I will always stand up for Black Lives Matter. I will always stand up for anyone that like is facing any sort of hate.
It's bullshit. It's just bullshit.
You guys are going to get us killed with these rumors. Like, you're literally going to get us killed.
Anyways, whatever.
This is me. I'm not racist. My husband is not racist. He is not on a racist record label. When he signed, there was not any racists on that record label, like, at all. Oh my God, Susan, go away. Susan, oh, really, Susan? That woman's been trolling me for over a year. She makes so many different fake accounts.
And of course, what Katie Joy response would ever be complete without not just the live stream or tons of tweets or tons of Instagram posts, but also an upload.
And in today's climate, this is probably one of the worst things you want to be accused of, because this last summer was so terrible for the entire United States. We had so much injustice that happened. We grew up in Minneapolis. What happened to George Floyd was not far away from where we grew up. I've spoken out repeatedly about the injustices that so many people and people of color face. I have spoken out against all of this, like, police brutality. I have stood up and supported Black Lives Matter. I am against any form of racism, and so is my husband. We are so against any form of hate. And because he made a video where he was using runes, Nordic runes from the Vikings era, it's an alphabet. This is not just because, anyways, here's my husband's statement. And my husband will stick up for me and I will stick up for him. And this is what he said. And this is a comment he made. I am a Norse heathen spiritual path, and I'm also a musician in black metal band, that they are using those things to come up with this narrative. Unfortunately, in those two worlds I just spoke of, there is a loud minority of people who actually are white supremacists, so they try to connect dots, but there is no connection. I am a dues-paying members of the Troth, which is an inclusive heathen community. I've also signed Proclamation 127, which is taking a direct stance against bigotry in any form. But because these people only know a tiny fraction about me and my life, they think they have all the info. And lastly, I'd like to say I respectfully, he's talking about wolves. There is bad people, a tiny fraction of people that have taken runes that are a language, right? They're the alphabet. It's being appropriated by hate groups, and it's not okay. And just because a hate group takes something over, the community itself doesn't lose their history. They don't get to lose their culture because some really bad people took some runes over because they decided that this was going to be theirs, right? I don't know how people can come up with this stuff because it's so opposite of who we are. And I understand, I am a public figure now and there's a lot of interest in me. It's no different than me having grandparents from Germany, right? So my grandparents are from Germany. Does that make me? And then when I spoke for him, I was accused of speaking for him and that he needs to speak for people himself. And I said, no, he doesn't need to speak for himself.
And next we have a tweet where she made a statement today. Due to a defamatory and dangerous rumor regarding my family and husband, we are addressing recent videos accusing my husband and his band of being white supremacists. In this political climate, making accusations like this is not only irresponsible but dangerous. Our statement is as follows. 1. My husband's band is not anti-Semitic or racist. Moribund Records is a large independent label that globally distributes metal music. Canisteros signed with the label for global distribution purposes. They were signed to a 2-album contract with an option for a third, which they fulfilled in 2012. 2. The band was on hiatus from 2012 to 2019 due to our son's medical condition. When the band regrouped to record their third album, they became aware of an album published by Moribund that was by a controversial band known for anti-Semitic lyrics. Moribund offered Canisteros the third album option. Canisteros declined because of their association with this band. 3. Canisteros condemns racism and anti-Semitism. Their new label also condemns racism and white supremacy. 4. None of the music made by Canisteros is anti-Semitic or racist. 5. Labeling Canisteros racist or anti-Semitic is defamatory and untrue. 6. Canisteros is a group composed of heathen men that have signed Proclamation 127 denouncing racism, white supremacy, and hate. 7. My husband is a member of the Troth, a German heathen religious organization. The organization denounces discrimination. 8. What is the Troth? The Troth exists in order to celebrate our religious and cultural heritage rather than to promote political, racial, social, or other agendas. Membership in the Troth and participation in our activities is open to worthy folks regardless of race, ethnic origin, gender, or sexual orientation, and we do not permit discrimination on these grounds in the activities of the Troth or any of its affiliated groups. If you feel drawn to the ways of the heathen North and would like to participate in our growing community, we invite you to drop us a line at the email addresses listed here. Help us in the challenging work of restoring the elder Troth to a proud, open, and active role in our society, culture, and world. The old gods are calling. To hear their call is a joy, an honor, and also a duty. If they are calling to you, it is time to take your place among friends and kin and bring new honor and strength to our ancient heathen faith. 9. Canisteros is an independent band. They are not paid by their record labels, don't tour, and don't make music for profit. They did not receive any payment from Moribund Records. 10. Guilt by association is not guilt. Because bad actors exist in the world of metal does not mean all artists are bad. This is a dangerous and slippery slope. It would be akin to saying artists signed to RCA or Jive are pedophiles because R. Kelly is charged with these crimes. 11. Implying malicious intent to my husband and his band for signing with Moribund Records is defamatory and untrue. Okay, let's just remind ourselves of some of these claims here that Katie made. She says that when her husband signed with this album label in 2009, that they were not known for signing racist bands, and they were not known for attracting such bands. And that it wasn't until her husband learned of them having signed these bands that he then said, nope, that's enough, I'm out of here. And he left money on the table, and he left owing them 2 more albums, or 1 more album, depending on which version you listen to. And in other words, he did not fulfill the terms of his contract, and that is why he left to find a new label that didn't promote racism. That's what Katie says. Now, let's look at what the evidence shows. Okay, this is from a January 6, 2000 article called The Price is White. In the article, it discusses how racist metal bands are really a multi-million-dollar industry now. It says, in fact, a report coming out this month warns that Moribund is part of a multi-million-dollar industry that's pushing racist rock. So as far back as 2000, that's 21 years ago, this label was known for signing racist bands. Further on down the page of this article, it says, Thompson says this label, which he started in 1991, is not political or racist, but encourages freedom of speech. There's a difference between being proud of one's heritage or culture and being flat out racist or prejudiced to other cultures. I just wanted to point this out here because in this interview, he's saying how he's just proud of his heritage or culture rather than being racist. You know, kind of like in One Norseman, we know how proud he is of his ruins. Okay, this next screenshot is a moribund called 2015 mail order catalog. It's the first page of the listings of all the albums and everything that they have for sale in their mail order catalog. And this next screenshot is the second page of this catalog. And down here towards the bottom, you can see Dead 137, Dead 181. Both of those are advertising Canisteros albums for sale for $10.99 each. This next screenshot is from a forum post. It's a list of labels to avoid should you not want to give money to labels for racist reasons or otherwise. It says, this list is here largely to inform. While many of these labels make themselves obvious from their lineup and bands, some of the more devious and add-in bands that aren't associated with the ideologists pick up the rights to albums from other less shady labels. Okay, and number 57 on this list was Moribund Records. Okay, I'm actually upset about this one since these guys were the label for IAT, one of Lebanon's better black metal acts. But it seems these guys are now actively trying to sue platforms like PayPal and even some credit card companies for kicking neo-Nazis off their platforms. Okay, this next screenshot is from an article discussing how PayPal deplatformed certain labels, including Moribund. It goes on to say, what we do find interesting is that the same SJW language, claims of right-wing extremists and neo-Nazi activity, is found in the letter sent to HHR. And it goes on to discuss how they didn't even notify the labels or anything, they just dropped them because of their views. And this last screenshot comes from an interview that Todd gave the summer of 2019. The interviewer asks, your first two albums were released by Moribund Records, and I must admit it felt like ages since I last heard the name. Perhaps I even confused it with another label. Anyway, both of you being label owners back then, what made you decide to work with Moribund, and did this cooperation succeed in terms of making more people aware of Canisteros, whom you might not have reached through God is Myth, which is Todd's record label at the time? Todd says, I must admit that the name God is Myth Records is one of my favorite things I've ever done in the music business. And as far as Moribund goes, you pretty hit the nail on the head. We simply decided at the time that Moribund was the best label for us due to the fact that they have worldwide distribution. So we signed a 2-album, 10-year deal with them, which now makes us free agents as that contract expires in August of this year. That would be August of 2019. So, according to that evidence, Todd left the label because he fulfilled the terms of his contract, which was 10 years and 2 albums, which he served 10 years under the contract, and he produced 2 albums for the label. So that's why he left, and that's why he went to another label. And in fact, he never once publicly denounced this label. He hasn't said a word against this label. He hasn't come out and spoken against their practices, or nor does he apologize for having been associated with this label. Now, remember earlier, Katie says that she doesn't associate or support anyone with this kind of thinking, yet here was her and her husband effectively doing work for this label, helping them earn money on the work of Todd and his art. I also want to point out that, since as early as 2000, there were reports being written in the scene here, in the music scene, about this label's practice of seeking out and trying to appeal to bands that push the limits as far as racial divides go. This was known. This was known enough to be written about and put up on the internet, but yet Todd, and mind you, this is his music scene. This is where he lives, he breathes. This is the music he knows. Are we supposed to believe that he didn't know this about one of the biggest and oldest labels in this genre? I do want to take 1 second here, though, and discuss his new label, Bind Room, because it's been stated several times now that his new label is not known for supporting racism, and they are, in fact, known for promoting inclusiveness. And from all things that I can find, this does hold to be true, it seems. I felt it important to add that here because I know that this genre of music does kind of have a bad reputation for things like racism. So I wanted to be sure to point this out about Bind Room recordings because they do appear to be the exception in this genre. Okay, so the last racism fail, I guess, here that I'm going to point out by Todd and or Katie is Todd's reading list. Specifically, one book that he gave 4 stars to. So let's go check that out. Okay, so the first screenshot here shows that this is, in fact, Katie's husband, and this is from the site Goodreads. And it shows that he gave 4 reviews, and he has some favorite books or whatnot. And then the next screenshot shows one of those books, and that book, as you can see, is Mein Kampf. And if you go over here to the right, you see that he gave the book 4 stars. He rated this book 4 stars. Now, before I go into this next part, I just want to say that I don't think that they are, either of these two are like racist exactly, or intentionally racist, that's for sure. But I do think that, like myself, they are also oftentimes racially insensitive, and rather than listening when it's being pointed out for them, they are fighting back. And that is the problem. That is the issue that I see with this. So, and this is why I'm making this video, so other people can see what it is we're talking about when people like Todd Chrisley say this, and why it is we say these things. Because you're never going to learn if you don't learn to listen, and they don't listen. Next, I just want to call attention to a post she made back around the George Floyd riots about Philando Castile. She writes, "It's awful. You have no idea how much Philando's death has left this huge imprint on our hearts. We haven't forgotten him. We haven't forgotten his family or his legacy. We haven't forgotten the piece of shit officer walked free and never saw a day of prison time. We sat and watched our city refuse to condemn him or even fire him. We sat and watched our government defend their officers. George Floyd's death was equally shocking. Both deaths captured on video. George begging to breathe. Officers just sitting there doing nothing. It's sick. This time, all the officers were fired immediately. Our major and police chief took immediate steps to denounce these officers and their behavior. So the response was so different, but it is too late." So I want to wrap this up by bringing attention to a blog post that she wrote on July 9, 2016. This blog post was discussing the events that happened in her hometown around Philando Castile. In her blog post, she writes, "There was a live stream video that went viral. We only saw the moments after he was shot multiple times by the officer. We did not witness what occurred before. My newsfeed has blown up of people fighting about what happened and has divided between pro-Black lives and pro-cops. I sit here on the fence, supporting both. As a mother of a child that is disabled, I live in a world of inequality. I know what it feels like to be marginalized because of my son. Please don't think I'm discounting what happened last week. In fact, of any person, I'm trying my best to understand. I grew up in the town where the officers serve. It is a small town, but doesn't lack diversity. In fact, my parents lived next door to immigrants from Tibet. As a child, I admired and respected the police force. They are involved and invested. Our town isn't full of cops that are racist. I do know that racial inequality exists. I do know that gun violence is out of control in our country. And I know that children are witnessing violence by guns more than we would like to admit. We need laws to change what is currently going on with guns. We need better training for police officers and training about profiling. We need better programs to help those living in poverty actually get out of poverty." So I'm going to end this video on 2 notes. One, the entire time that she or Todd spoke about the runes and about why they should be allowed to use them and to share them and to put them out in the world and to keep putting them and tagging them and things, but they never once considered the effect that their actions were having on other people, on those deeply affected by such imagery. And lastly, I want to point out that the blog post in which I just read from is the one and only blog post that Katie wrote about Philando's murder. Throughout the entire blog post, not once did she say his name. Okay, now it's time for member shoutouts. I'd like to thank
Kim in Darkness, Megan Broussard, Cindy D, Molly, Chicken Cakes, Miss Salty, Diane Harlow, Sassy Elmo, Karma is Coming, T King, Selena Colstead, Gam Gam times 3, Mariana Santos, Mima Dragon, Golden Unicorn, Maria Rose, One Worked Angel, Stephanie G, Cass T, Melinda, Rose, Star Lily, Melinda, Sweet Home Alamanda, TB, Sassy Naz, Awesome James, Michelle G, Law and Lori, Dottie Morgan, Robin M, TB, Cheryl, Anika Hildebrand, Donnie Bloomstein, Vivi LCR, Amputee, Pretend Fashionista, Crystal, The Dark Magician, Totally Clueless, Sally Godfrey, Paula Dupree, Canceled Sadfish, Lola W, Captain T, Susan Elliott, Rena Rue, Sunny D, Sensibly Morbid, Grace Case, Busy Bee, Haiti Joyless, Berber, Bo Roundtree, Dana Marie, Sue M, Dee Marie, Claire Asper, Jamie Couchard, Joey's Mom, Annette Carlson, Lola Pepper, Police Wife Life, Angel Cake, JCM, Kimberly Roddy Mom, Nancy P, Atticus Finch, T. Adams, Crystal Clark, Sky Vision, Karma Kid 101, Leah, Jeanette Stevens, Little Red Y'all, Gentry Art, Jen Gerard, Poodlerific, and Yoo-Hoo Shoo Shoo.
Thank you very much for joining, and thank you everyone for watching.